Yo, what is good, everybody? How is it going? How are we doing? Oh my goodness, we're back again. My eyelashes, oh my god. Gee, ah man, yeah, it could be anything, you know? It might be the title of today's stream, maybe even the go live notification. It could really be anything, to be honest. I don't know, beats me though. Beats me. What's good, Kennedy? What's good, Howard? What's good, Adam? How are you guys doing? Are you ready for me to react to a video I have still yet to see? What's good, Gene? So about reaction stream, people leave. What? But it's a great stream. We have the creator of the video in chat right now. You can get behind the scenes information, anything you could ever need to know about Izumicom. She's literally in the stream right now. Yeah. I figured, you know, today, I will go ahead and watch it because I've been meaning to watch it for a while, and you know, I feel like right now is the perfect time to do it. You got bullied by Celeste today? Oh, that sounds like what's gonna happen to me tomorrow. How I'm gonna get bullied by Celeste tomorrow, really. Hopefully you're there, Gene. Don't forget, you're teaching me from scratch the Celeste way, okay? You're gonna teach me, and you're gonna get me good. No, you are gonna get bullied by me. Okay. Well, hopefully you actually teach me as well. You know, hopefully it's not just straight bully session and I learn. What's good, Fong? How's it going? It's a long video. Okay. It's only like 2 hours and 15 minutes. Okay. I've kept my attention span longer. All right. I've seen the right opinion video. Okay. I believe that remind me. No, I had never been to Izumicom. I didn't know about it before I met you, and even after we met, I just never had the chance, or you know, whatever, to end up going to one. Should I get like a Subway Surfers like endless loop, just like put under the video like for the stream, or like in like the top right corner, something like that? Same thing with Tokyo and Tulsa. I just don't think I've ever really been like a con person. The only con that I went to like on any regular basis was whatchamacallit, you know, the one in Boston, or PAX, because I went to that 2 or 3 times. I went to Anime Boston once, and then there was something in here called San Japan, but I was only there because of a Smash tournament. So I've never really been like a con person. I enjoy the energy, but I find that when I go to cons, I never do anything. Like, I feel like whenever I go to a con, I understand everything, but I'm not interested enough, I guess, to be involved. I don't know, it's really weird. I don't know the best way. I don't know the best way to put it. It's not for everyone. Yeah, and you know, it kind of sucks. I feel like I would be the kind of person that would love it and would love to go to one every year, but I just don't have that need, I guess, and it kind of sucks because it seems like it would be something up my alley. It's going to be a little bit of both. Okay, well, hopefully it's more, Gene, hopefully it's more, you know, learning, you know, hopefully it's like this much learning and like maybe that much bullying, maybe, but hopefully this much learning. Yeah. 2021 was the first year of my life since 2006 that I didn't go to a single con all year. Oh my god, you had a crazy streak. Oh my god, you're oh, I guess you were in England, right? Yeah, so that's probably why you didn't go to an anime con. I'm assuming. You just don't have that dog in you. I really don't. I do not have that kawaii dog in me. I don't know the Japanese word for dog. I would have said, hold on a second. What's the Japanese word for dog? Let's see. Yes, I don't have that kawaii inu. That kawaii inu in me. I did watch Inuyasha, never on any kind of frequent basis, and only in dub when it was on Toonami back in the day. I've probably seen the ending of Inuyasha more than the actual full Inuyasha show, and that's only because it would wake me up in the middle of the night. I've probably seen those red lilies countless times. So yeah, that's pretty funny. We all have the core memory wake up to My Will playing at 2 a.m. That and George Lopez. It's still the longest anime I've ever watched to completion. The longest anime I've ever watched to completion is probably, like, if we're talking all episodes, if we're talking all episodes to completion, it honestly might be, is it Hunter x Hunter? It might be Hunter x Hunter. I'm not, that's weird to say. Every episode, every movie, an extra series finale. Oh my God, you are an Inuyasha goat. Like, oh my God. In any case, if you wanna after the video, you can do a Q&A with me via Discord if you got questions that I could publicly answer. Sure, yeah. If I have any questions or anything, I do have to leave relatively quickly after stream because I'm getting a tutoring session for some P+ coding stuff. So if I can get some questions, I'll definitely get you on a quick call. What's good, Sydney? How's it going? Oh wait, hold on a second. Wait, Sydney. Wait, Sydney, was that you? Oh, you said you just don't have that dog in you. You're the same pink as Kennedy, and I just noticed that you're in here. What's good, Kennedy? Sydney. Oh my God. Here we go with this again. God dang. Here we go with this again. Just because both their names are pink in my chat, and I didn't notice, and I got them mixed up because I was saying both their names in the same sentence. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. I just started talking instead of pie. I did. You know, you did come in kind of smooth, Sydney. I definitely did not even notice you in the sea of Kennedy. I just saw pink and I was like, yep, that's another Kennedy. Sailor Moon? Nah, I'm pretty sure, I don't even think I've ever seen a full episode of Sailor Moon in general. All I remember is as a kid, I remember telling my sister, Sailor Moon sucks so much that she told my mom, and my mom said that if I said it again, she'll make me wear a sign on my shirt that says, I love Sailor Moon to school. And so I stopped saying it because I didn't want to do that. That's the extent of Sailor Moon. Oh, I'm sorry. And Sailor Moon was it also had a very prevalent trailer on my Pokemon VHS tapes. I also remember that. That's about the most of my Sailor Moon knowledge. Oh, and the tuxedo guy saying you didn't do anything, and then he disappears. You know what? You're right, Kennedy. That's facts. Let's go and get this video started. All right, let me go ahead and pull that mug up. Yes. Oops. It definitely shouldn't be all the way up here, but that's fine, I guess. We can fix this. There we go. Boom. Look at that. Beautiful. Perfectly fit, I think. All right, there we go. Okay. So here's the video. The title. Izumicom, the worst con that never happened. Made by the Red Bard. Make sure to go check her out, follow her if you haven't already. If you're a homie, you should already be following her anyway. There we go. Obviously. Oh yeah, this is my other YouTube channel. I forgot. This is the VODs channel. This is the VODs channel. I'm a subscribe again. Give the video a like. This is my VODs channel. I was wondering why I wasn't already subscribed, but don't worry, I got you. All right, here we go. Here is Izumicom 2018, the worst con that ever happened.
About the worst fan conventions of all time.
Well, that's good, Dan.
Generally, a lot of the same names come up. Names like Anime Matsuri, Lost Pegasus Unicon, and, well, I mean, you can't talk about bad cons and not bring up
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Can you guys hear it? Is the audio good?
Like, grown inside together. That's what I've been doing.
I love this video.
So on 3, we're all gonna sigh together, okay? So
okay.
1, 2.
But today,
I love
like
that
to tell
clip.
you about what I think is a massively overlooked train wreck of a con, one that shockingly few people know about, and it's called Izumicom. Specifically, its 2018 convention was the awful one. The others were great, and that actually made it that much more surprising that 2018 turned out the way it did. Now, I realize that comparing it to the likes of DashCon is a bold statement, but Izumicom 2018 was boldly awful. Like, just to give you a little taste, a little preview of what was going on, it had a new owner who, before owning the con, came dangerously close to
I know that center. That's where my cousin graduated.
And while expectations for her leadership were remarkably low, she still
I've been downtown many
managed
times
to surpass everyone's worst nightmares. Her communication was notoriously awful. Her loose grasp of the con's goings-on caused more than one incident that could have got the con into serious trouble. And I'll get into the specifics later, of course, but everything reached a crescendo only weeks before the event was supposed to happen, resulting in the messiest, most explosive con cancellation that I personally have ever seen. Like,
wait, Kennedy, wait, quick. You used to turn the volume up, Ted. Don't worry, I got you. Kennedy, did you wait? Were you trying to go to this one at the time or no?
I'm not even joking or
Where the
exaggerating
freak is the
when
volume?
I say that this
Okay, here it
con
is.
was at least as bad as DashCon. Honestly, no.
Okay.
I would say that it was worse than DashCon. Really and truly.
Worse than
good.
DashCon?
This con was bonkers, and yet outside of the Oklahoma,
I remember you talking about that. I remember you were talking about that, Kennedy.
Really, not all that many other people who know about this con. But you know what? That ends today. I've spent literal years learning pretty much everything there is to know about what happened to this con from several of its former directors, artists, panelists, and more, so that this story can finally be told. So without any further ado, let me tell you all about it.
Oh, wait, is the volume good now, Adam, or do I need to turn it up more? The local.
So, first things first, before we can understand what made Izumicom 2018 so awful, we need to know more about Izumicom in general. So, Izumicom was a fall anime convention in central Oklahoma that was launched in 2007, though you can still find posts talking about its planning that go as far back as 2006, which has caused some mild confusion that it might have started that year, but I'll draw your attention to Izumicom's 2008
Hopefully you show some of the fun in the video.
That year, it's, Tooth annual show. Anyways, the first Izumicon was held at the Biltmore in OKC.
Okay.
Then it moved to the Reed Center in Midwest City for a while. And then finally it moved to the Cox Convention Center, which is now Prairie Surf Studios, in downtown OKC in 2013. Incidentally, I went to this con every year between 2007 and 11, and then again in 2017, where I was a panelist. I was also supposed to be a panelist in 2018, but you'll see how that went later in the video. Anyways, Izumicon was founded by Scott Richardson, Stan Dolan, and the late Marlon Stodchill. The three had previously all been involved with Anime Weekend Atlanta and launched GE2 and KawaiiCon together. And partially because KawaiiCon's launch was so successful,
hold up,
and also
hold up a second. Wait,
Kabu and
I think I knew
together.
somebody in the background. Oh, and never mind.
KawaiiCon's launch was
Never
so
mind.
successful, and also because Scott had moved from Atlanta to Oklahoma in 2005, the idea to start another new convention in Oklahoma just seemed like the next obvious choice at the time. And that new convention would, of course, be Izumicon.
Did Oklahoma
Tokyo
seem like
OK,
the most
formerly known as
obvious
Tokyo and
place?
Tulsa, but nonetheless Oklahoma's largest anime convention now almost by default, wouldn't have its official launch until 2008. And while there were a handful of smaller Oklahoma anime conventions like RoninCon and CosCon that happened prior to its launch, there was still nothing quite the size
That's
or
facts.
scope
That's
of
a good point.
Izumicon in Oklahoma at the time, and certainly nothing that was being orchestrated by a group with even half as much experience as Izumicon's founders. And I'm telling you this so you can better understand just how easy it was for Izumicon to quickly become a huge hit among local anime fans.
You know, I just want to say, if you're gonna do the dance right, I need you to put some effort in it. These people look, or at least some of them, they look so floppy with it. They're not really putting any heart into it. If you don't put heart into it, it looks cringe. Okay, that when people do this, they need to put their soul into it.
As a matter of fact, it was getting so huge so fast that rumors quickly circulated that its launch is why RoninCon, which tended to be the local fan favorite anime con in Oklahoma before Izumicon, ceased operations, as it had its last event in 2005, though they were hoping to plan another for 2007 that ultimately never happened. But neither Scott nor the handful of former RoninCon staffers that I spoke to blamed RoninCon's decline on Izumicon. To be more specific, those former RoninCon staffers said that the con had already been in a visible decline by the time Izumicon came around. None of them recall there being one big specific reason why RoninCon went into decline. Rather, it just seemed to be a series of management mishaps that were never neutralized by a consistent source of income, and over time, everything just piled up. For example, one former RoninCon staff member alleged that overspending on t-shirts seemed to be a consistent problem for the con. In other words, it's sad, but nonetheless extremely likely that RoninCon would have ceased operations sometime in the mid or late 2000s with or without the launch of Izumicon. But even though Izumicon isn't responsible for RoninCon's decline, it still doesn't really surprise me that people thought that it could have been, and I'm saying that not just because of the timing of all this, but because of how quickly and how thoroughly Izumicon's popularity eclipsed RoninCon's, despite RoninCon being the older con. In fact, the former RoninCon staffers estimate that their last event, which as a reminder was in 2005, had about 250-ish people in attendance, a number that was pretty normal for them. Meanwhile, there was an estimated 1,000 people at Izumicon in just its first year, and that number would only continue to climb over the course of the con's lifespan.
Wait, quick question, Kennedy. Was Izumicon like really popular in like the anime community in general? Or did like Izumicon in Oklahoma just pop off just because it was anime? Because it seems like they're not because man, 1,000 in its first year, that's pretty good, right? Especially considering the other anime con wasn't as big. I mean, I guess they could have had like whatchamacallit, just better marketing, I guess, but 1,000, that's pretty good. Or whatever number that, I can't remember what number you said. I think it was over 1,000. I don't know, cosplay at PAX South next year. You guys know what you have to do to get me in that cosplay.
Con would would never attract the several tens of thousands of attendees that you could find at, say, a lot of Texas
You know exactly what you have
conventions,
to do,
I'm not gonna
Plate.
sit here and pretend like it was the perfect con, but for anime fans in Oklahoma, especially central Oklahoma, it was still something much closer. It was fun. It still had pretty good attendance, all things considered, and the con was generally pretty well liked. But 2016 would end up being was generally pretty still had pretty good
Where are
attendance,
you?
all things considered, and the
Hold on. What am I supposed to do with this 2011 Nokia phone camera? Wait, is that you? Wait, is this you right here? Wait, I think this is you, right? I could barely tell. All right, your hair was just a slighter light shade of red, or a slighter lighter shade or whatever than this person's hair right here. You can barely tell you're a redhead, right? You can barely tell. It's only slightly lighter than the brunette right next to you. That's crazy.
The con was generally pretty well liked, but 2016 would end up being a pretty major turning point for the con. More specifically, its 2017 event would end up being the prelude to the beginning of the
I saw
end
that.
of
You were going crazy.
Izumicom.
Oof.
For this whole story seems to have been made with a scheduling conflict. Namely, that for reasons I wasn't able to 100% verify, the Cox Convention Center just wasn't available for the weekend that Izumicon was hoping to use for their 2016 event. Unable to secure a weekend
it just
they thought
wasn't
was
available? Okay.
particularly better. Ultimately, Izumicon was more or less forced to settle for skipping their 2016 event and just hosting their 2017 event in January. Izumicon was always more of a November event, so obviously this decision wasn't exactly ideal, but alas, that's just what the con's leadership felt was their best option. And in fairness to them, I mean, while the first weekend of January isn't necessarily perfect, it could still be a lot worse. I mean, you know, really the only thing they needed to worry about now was the impending possibility of winter weather, but
Bro, that's just a picture of Boston, actually.
Generally a pretty warm state, so, I mean, think about it. What are the odds that there'd be winter weather at all, let alone specifically during Izumicon weekend, right?
The final round of snowfall is possible in Oklahoma City Friday morning after overnight snow of 1 to 3 inches. Snow is possible till around noon on Friday, according to the National Weather Service. A winter weather advisory remains in effect for western and central Oklahoma as the system moves east. Roadways are slick and hazardous across central parts of the state. Travel is discouraged. Several closings have been reported Friday morning, including the school districts of Oklahoma City, Edmond.
I remember that, Kennedy. I remember Snowmageddon.
On the night before the con was set to start,
it was a great
Central
first year in
Oklahoma
Boston.
got covered in about 2 inches of ice. And, you know, I get it. For some of you, this probably doesn't sound like a big deal, and you don't understand why this is such a big problem. But Oklahoma is generally pretty warm, and by extension, not super well equipped to deal with winter weather when it actually hits. But even though all the local schools were closed, for Izumicon, the show still had to go on. Here's the good news.
School's closed, but Izumicon's still in there,
literally
baby.
on the other side of the street from the convention center, and even forgetting about them, there's still plenty of others sprinkled throughout the downtown area. So people who either live
Wait, Kennedy, did you just actually go downtown just to get this footage? Like, you just went downtown. You'd be like, yo, let me get some video of the convention center real quick. I can tell. Just because like the way the cameras were, like, wait, did she just go down there? I guess so, right?
Downtown or were staying in nearby hotels were still able to get to the con without much of a problem. Most notably, this included all of the con's guests. But
You know,
the
you're
bad
right.
news was a substantial amount of this con's attendance was local, but not like living in the downtown area local. You know, we're talking people who already live in or close to Oklahoma City. You know, the kind of people who don't need to stay in a hotel room. throughout the
Wrong.
weekend.
Not five.
In other words,
Five bad.
Attendance took a pretty big hit that Friday. And let me tell you something, it showed.
Oh, I
Several
caught them.
artists and vendors didn't show up. Several panels had to be canceled, including one of mine, actually. And you could practically smell the disappointment in the air. Yeah, it was not a good day for Izumicon. But, you know, things were getting better on Saturday and Sunday. You know, the ice was starting to melt and more people started showing up. And I'm told that although it wasn't as much of a profit as all the other recent years, the con did still make a profit. But that Friday...
You know, I actually have a quick question. So when you can't, or when a panel is canceled, is it you canceling it because you know the turnout is going to be low? Or is it like the convention center saying like, okay, well, nobody's going to be here? Or does the panel start and nobody shows up, so you're like, well, I guess I'm just done for now. Like, how does that process work for panels? It could be anything. Okay. I guess how did it go for you then in that specific situation? Like for example, so let's say you're supposed to have a panel on a certain day. Is it like the convention center like saying like, hey, sorry, no, nobody's gonna be here, you have to cancel your panel? Or is it you yourself saying, you know what, I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of people here, I'll just, yeah, we're done with the panel? In this case, it was the weather. It was like I couldn't get there in time. Okay, got you. Okay, I got you.
You know, it was rough. It was really, really rough. And that's probably why the con's owners, Marlon and Faisal of Dyad LLC, and yes, by the way, that is the same Marlon who helped launch the con, decided that something big needed to change. Now let's talk about them for just a moment here. At the time, Dyad was a company that was co-owned by Marlon and Faisal. The company ran Kawaii Con and Comic-Con Honolulu, but the two were still involved in plenty of other cons in addition to them, most notably including Anime Weekend Atlanta. It's hard to say for sure just how long Marlon and Faisal had been considering putting Izumicon under new ownership, but it's widely believed that the troubles the con had in 2017 is what cemented their decision. It was time to let Izumicon go. Or more specifically, it was time to put it under new and preferably local ownership. According to Faisal, simply put, it wasn't fun anymore. These conventions are volunteer-based, including myself.
Oh, really?
And I just didn't have the vacation / time off from my actual job to keep doing it. So then,
really?
Who was
Oh,
going
that's
to buy the
interesting.
con? Well, there were a few potential buyers, which included, but wasn't limited to, the con's then head tech director and resident DJ.
I did not know
and
that.
For a while, it looked like he was going to get it too. But alas, due to some problems in the contract, this deal fell through. And instead, the con ultimately became a property of a company called Ladder Entertainment. Oh, what's the matter? Never heard of Ladder? Yeah, nobody else at the time had either, but they did know the person who controlled Ladder, the person who now owned Izumicon's name. And it was a late 20-something-year-old former Izumicon volunteer called Dez. And everything up until this point, the venue problems, the ice storm, you know, all that, yeah, that was just the prelude to the beginning of the end of Izumicon, and it's Dez taking over the con that officially marks the beginning of the end of Izumicon.
Wait, hold on a second. Wait, what does it say? I just found out that a volunteer I blacklisted from our convention is now the prospective new owner. That's crazy. I love the feeling shocked reaction at the top.
Dez had two hobbies that are going to be relevant to this story. There was occasionally volunteering at cons, of course, and also paranormal investigation.
Hey there, demons, it's me, your boy.
I'm sure it's immediately obvious why her interest in cons is going to be relevant to this story, of course, but as for the paranormal investigations, that's going to be important because foreshadowing / irony alert, she sure did like to ghost people. Jokes aside, though, let's go ahead and talk about Dez's con experience. While I couldn't exactly find a full list of all the cons that she's ever volunteered at, I have still managed to find at least 6 confirmed
I figured you would be,
instances of her
Kennedy.
volunteering, and then one more figured that I'm gonna count for, let's say, half a point that she claimed to own while all the Izumicom 2018 stuff was happening. Though if I can be totally honest, even counting this one as a half seems pretty generous because all signs point to the idea that making this con happen was never a serious priority. Yeah, in her email signature, Des claimed to be the owner of something called Oklahoma's Paranormal and Horror Convention, but as far as I can tell, that con never actually happened. It had a Facebook page that was made in October of 2017, and I was able to grab screenshots of it in January of 2021. Yeah, I was not kidding when I told you that I've been working on this video for literal years, but at some point between then and now, the page was removed. But at least as of January 2021, the last post was made in June of 2018, but really, that was it. No event ever took place, no date was ever posted, no venue, not even much of a logo, really. Just
3 photos.
nothing. The only substantial glimpse into this con is an email that Des sent with some preliminary planning. You know, things like, here's some ideas for potential guests, here's some ideas for badge pricing, here's the venue I'm considering, here's a—
Wait, where did these emails come from? Did you, like, is it just from, like, was this email sent to you? Like, were they just, like, sending this out to everybody, or did you, like, talk to somebody for these? Okay. Realize that picture of the word. Hey, it's the best they can do. I interviewed a lot of people. I would hope so, but it took you years for this.
Nothing concrete, suffice to say. But
I expect you to interview everybody at that convention.
Facebook page to learn more about it, but to no surprise of mine, well, I didn't get a response.
I respect that effort, though.
So, I mean, there's that, I guess. In any case, as for the class that she volunteered at,
Scene!
I've been able
Bro,
to
they left you
confirm
on
that
scene.
she
That's
volunteered
crazy.
at least once at SoonerCon, twice at Anime Fest, once at A-Con, and twice at Izumicom prior to her ownership. Starting with Anime Fest, she volunteered in 2016 and 17 as a regular press volunteer and then press manager, respectively. I was unable to get in contact with anyone who was involved in the con's promotion process, so the precise details of why Des specifically was chosen to get promoted are still pretty fuzzy to me.
In hindsight, I wish I was clear earlier that SoonerCon's not an anime con.
In any case, nobody that I spoke to seems
fine.
to remember anything about Des as a volunteer in 2016.
Go ahead and put that as an editor's note in the
2017 was different,
comments.
not least of all because Anime Fest 2017 was a particularly chaotic year for the con overall. You see, they managed to get a ton of fantastic guests, which most notably included some of the main staff of Yuri on Ice, which wasn't even a year old yet at the time. Yeah, needless to say, the fandom showed up in droves, and the con wasn't exactly 100% ready for them. To put it into perspective, in 2014, the con had an estimated attendance of 10,297 people. In 2015, 10,090. In 2016, 10,751. And then in 2017, more than 12,000. Said Yatatachi's owner and editor-in-chief, Katie Castillo, in her review for the con, anything Yuri on Ice related was a hot mess. We went to the first panel, but ended up bowing out so that other people could get a seat at others. I don't think the convention had any idea on the size of the fandom and turnout. But to get back to Des,
that's crazy,
before the
actually.
con itself, she had sent an email saying that she'd be unable to be there. The official reason was for personal reasons, though she told the con's other directors and managers that it was due to a medical emergency.
That's why I put a screenshot of the email where Des says but per request of the person showing me.
In her family. She therefore gave her position to a friend of hers who she referred to as her lieutenant. I tried reaching out to her lieutenant to learn more, but alas, they never replied to me.
Bro, Kenny's reaching out to the military? That's crazy.
Friend who alleged that Des hadn't told them about any of this until
Wait, what? Where is this? Is this at an anime con? I was gonna say, oh, was this your anime collection? But then I saw Boruto, and so I knew that couldn't be the case. Okay, this is in the UK. Okay, gotcha.
pretty much the last possible second, the literal
Skumugen
day before they were going to be
jump
leaving
scare.
the con, and as they were out getting dinner with friends, no less. I was pissed and told her how unacceptable it was at that very dinner, she'd further say about it. We showed up and did what we could, and I feel like we did a good job with virtually no warning we'd be doing anything like that. And indeed, despite the rest of the con's chaos, I've actually heard pretty good feedback about the press overall from the press's side of things. So whatever Des had done prior and her lieutenant and the other press volunteers did the weekend of the event, well, it worked. More specifically, I spoke to 2 members of Anime Fest 2017's press, and both had glowing things to say about their experience. In fact, one of them, Jaden, said about it, "It's because my manager and I had such a good experience with A-Fest that we had plenty of trust in the Izumicom process." Next, there's A-Con 2017, where Des was volunteering in guest relations. To be honest, I wasn't able to find out much about the quality of Des as a volunteer, but one anonymous volunteer, who I'll call A, alleged about Des that, quote, "She didn't do her job at all. I was in the main guest room helping the guests who wanted to rest in between their different events. Des was late, or sometimes never showed up to help her guests or anyone else." But for as bad as that is, it wouldn't even be the worst claim I'd heard about Des at A-Con 2017. Both A and a former friend of Dez's who was at the con alleged that it was here that
Yes,
Des
what's
had
good
offered
logic?
a certain man sexual favors from A without A's consent, and that A quickly
Wait,
reported
what?
this to the con, and that it was
Wait, hold on a second, wait.
alleged that it was here that Des had offered a certain man sexual favors from A
What?
without A's consent, and that A quickly reported this to the con, and that it resulted in Des getting banned from volunteering at A-Con. Possibly at
what?
all, or possibly just within guest relations. I reached out to A-Con directly to see if they could tell me more about this,
Oh,
but
the
they
video
told me that
is the video is Izumicon, the worst con that never happened. Yes, we are absolutely anime pilled in this chat.
Unfortunately, they had no surviving documentation from the time. An anonymous member of the convention with a vague recollection of this incident added to this, quote, "Nothing came out of the report. Also, there was no formalized procedures for record maintenance, which was corrected in 2018 moving forward. So the lack of records is expected for 2017. I also reached out to 2 other volunteers that I know Des worked with at A-Con, and unfortunately, neither of them got back to me. But I also reached out to Shane Holmberg, who was A-Con's director of operations at the time, who said about it, "I don't recall something like that being reported that high, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was covered up." A-Con had a do not hire list and a blacklist. In order to get on it for anything aside from no-call no-shows, there had to be a good reason and some involvement from upper management. My
It's like,
guess
yeah, what-
is Des may never have been put on the list, or it never made it that high. Due to the
That's
lack of
crazy.
documentation, we'll probably never have the complete truth of what happened here. You're free to draw your own conclusions, of course, but the impression that I got from learning all this, at the very least, was that this incident was reported, but for some reason the report never made it high up the ladder, letting it go easily undocumented at a con that, at least at the time, already lacked in record keeping. This lack of record keeping is also probably why there's so much fuzziness around the question of whether or not Des was fully blacklisted. Based on what Shane and the aforementioned volunteer told me, it seems somewhat unlikely to me that Des was ever, fully and officially blacklisted, but I wouldn't be shocked to hear if there were miscommunications at some phase that caused some people to think that she was.
So if I'm getting this correct, so Des was never, I guess, formally blacklisted. Like somebody probably talked about it, but then they just never formalized it, and so it just kind of just got forgotten about, or potentially swept under the rug, and so nobody even really knew about that. Okay, it sounds like it's just a little muddy, but somewhere in there somebody said something about Des at some point, and it just didn't go anywhere that it needed to go. But there are people who allege remembering about this. Okay, got it.
But that's just the impression that I got. The provable facts of this situation are few, and basically boil down to that there's at least 3 people who claim to remember this happening or being
Literally the
reported.
next line of the
There's
video.
no surviving formal documentation of it, though a lack of documentation is typical for A-Con 2017. And as for SoonerCon, it's unlikely, but nonetheless not entirely clear whether or not she had ever volunteered there before then, but at the very least I can certainly say with confidence that she has not volunteered there since. sense. In the interest of learning more about con operations and securing a contract for Izumicon with SoonerCon's then venue, the Reed Center in Midwest City, she, quote, sorta-ish volunteered over in the green room, like once for a few hours on the hotel side of SoonerCon's con ops. And then as far as Izumicon goes, we know that 2014 was her second Izumicon overall, and the first Izumicon that she ever volunteered at. She was on the events team, but didn't complete the critical paperwork as needed, so when she applied to volunteer again the next year, she was sent to ops, which in this context means that she'd be a door watcher, so, you know, very little paperwork required. It's unclear what she spent her first few volunteer hours doing, but the reason that she'd become noteworthy, for better or for worse, was because of what she did when she was given what's largely seen as one of the most simple tasks that the con had available, to
How many
watch
people
the
actually
exit of the
buy
dealer's
these
room.
figures?
Now,
How
like I said,
profitable
this is a
are
pretty
they?
easy job that mostly just involves sitting there. You
Question
know, you
for
can be
later.
on your phone, you can chat with the people nearby, you can do pretty much whatever you want as long as you're physically present. Like, I cannot stress enough just how low maintenance this task is. In theory, this should not be a problem.
Howard said too many.
Orange.
This is what Cisco, the then director of ConOps, as well as a few other then Izumicon directors allege happened. At one point...
Wait, hold on, say that. Wait, that took me out actually. Name a yellow fruit. Orange. I don't know why that that took me out. That's actually hilarious. I mean, I bought 2 Miku figures at Anime Boston last year. Okay, all right.
During Dez's shift,
I guess a lot of people knew
Cisco
about him, I
is told
guess.
that some people have snuck
I always
into the
just see
dealer's
so
room via
many.
the exit because nobody's posted there. And he says,
No, Dez is supposed to be there.
Yeah, well, Dez is gone.
it wasn't until at least a few minutes after Cisco
Oh, Best
confirmed
Genius, is
Dez
that
was
you?
indeed gone, and who knows how long she'd been gone by that point. Anyways, that's when she finally sent him a text saying that she reached her minimum hour requirement to get her free badge, so she was gonna go enjoy the con. Nobody that I spoke to about this knows for a fact why she did this, but there is some hearsay that she would later tell people that it was because she felt that she had been there for too long and that no one came to relieve her. But regardless of why, it still created a massive problem for Cisco and the other volunteers. And
That's
to make
tough.
matters even worse, when Cisco checked the volunteer log, he saw that despite what Dez had told him, she was still a few hours short of that minimum requirement. She was then given the option of finishing her shift and actually hitting the requirement or quitting early, and she chose to quit early. Yeah, needless to say, Cisco was furious, and he requested that she be blacklisted from volunteering again right then and there. And his request was sort of accepted. In more official language, she was put on probation. This resulted in her getting rejected from volunteering in guest relations in 2017. And this rejection
Oh,
is
just
interesting
guest
because
relations
we can see
specifically?
Dez saying that she only applied because she spoke to the then guest relations director at a dinner meeting where she told Dez that she could always use backups. But the then guest relations director would say to the other Izumicon directors that not only did she never tell this to Dez, but that she also wanted Dez nowhere near her team. So, you know, eyes emoji. Nobody in Izumicon's directorial circle heard anything new about Dez until several months later when, out of the blue, they saw a Facebook post saying that she was the new owner of the convention. Yeah, you heard me correctly. The same person who was very nearly blacklisted from volunteering at Izumicon was now its new owner. And if that caught you off guard just now, yeah, just try to imagine how Izumicon's directors felt about it when they
What?
heard the news. In fact, Cisco told me how every single phone call he made to the rest of the ops team to tell them about this went exactly the same.
Hi, it's Cisco. Okay, remember Dez? Yeah, she's the new owner of the con.
What the fuck?
It
If
was
you have
a
any questions,
pretty
direct them right toward
well-known
Red
fact
Bard.
that Dez was unemployed and rather broke at the time, so yeah, confusion and surprise were definitely the initial reactions that all the directors had. In fact, the confusion is still kinda there because none of the directors that I spoke to seemed to know for an absolute fact just how or under what conditions she was sold the con. I've been told that the story she was
That's
usually told
weird.
people when they asked about it was that she planned on paying Marlon and Faisal back over time, presumably presumably with profits from the con. But the key word here is usually. I've heard other claims like that she said she paid 10 grand for the con, or that she said she was gonna give Marlon and Faisal a certain percentage of the con's profits each year. You know, stuff that sounds kinda similar and like they may be able to coexist, but also they're just different enough that you can't help but feel at least a little skeptical, especially if you know the fate that would befall this con and are therefore blessed with the power of hindsight. And you know, the worst part of all this is that these weren't even the wildest Des is not good at describing how she obtained or planned on obtaining money stories that I heard throughout the research process of this video. Yeah, they're not even close. No, that dubious honor definitely goes to the weird ways in which Des described how she was gonna get money to maintain the con. We'll talk more about this later, but Des didn't seem to have a very—
Wait, hold on a second. My impression initially was that Des was like maybe like a late teenager, maybe early adult, just kind of going to a con. How old is Des? Do we have a picture? Who is Des? Is Des like 30 or 40? What's going on? Because I'm assuming if you're getting a con, you have some amount of money. Okay. I'm sorry. I must have missed that part. My bad. I missed on how old she was. I'm sorry. Okay, late 20s. Okay, probably late 20s. I'm sorry.
very strong grasp on what a sponsor was and how she was going to get it.
I'm sorry, Sensei. I don't have my notes ready.
Recall her speaking in one way or another about having some kind of anonymous benefactor who was going to take care of the con's finances. In fact, two directors alleged that she had privately told the two of them in person that, get this, the con was actually being bankrolled by a certain voice actor who wanted to save it, but this had to stay on the down low because, well, if this information got out, it could jeopardize her contract. Wait, what? Yeah, many people seem to recall hearing Des say that the aforementioned benefactor was a voice actor who she only sometimes name-dropped, and I guess the idea was that this voice actor was gonna bankroll the con through Des because— reasons? A screenshot of a conversation Des had with a then friend of hers shows her alleging that the voice actor is giving her the money needed to start her LLC and talks about him in a way that makes it sound like he's not unlike a business partner of sorts. There's another screenshot the then friend gave me where Des can be seen alleging that the voice actor's involvement was limited to giving her $100 for her to start her LLC and that he was never officially a partner. For what it's worth, though, I have contacted the voice actor in question. They understandably do not want to be named, and they've denied having any interest or intent on bankrolling Izumicom in any capacity. I didn't find out about Des alleging that the voice actor paid for her to start her LLC until considerably after I spoke to the voice actor, and when I tried contacting them again to clarify whether or not they did that, I didn't get a response. In any case, I've gotten really off topic, so to go ahead and just swerve back to the peculiar issue.
It's all relevant.
How Des came into owning the con. I asked Faisal about it, and he told me, quote, Des contacted Marlon and said she was interested and didn't want the con to die. We sold/gave it to her to hope that the con would continue. We were paid $100 for it, so this wasn't a profit-motivated sale.
Wait, hold on a second. Des said she was... Wait, really? Wait. I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding. So the owners of Izumicom took $100 and they were good with Izumicom. I just want to make sure that, like, because Marlon is the whatever. Okay, I just want to make sure that I understand who Marlon was, because I feel like I was about to forget. Okay, Marlon was the founder. Okay.
And I want to make a little footnote here, just for the sake of clarity. By all accounts,
they had to have been good people.
Was never intended to be a
Look at Kenny throwing that YouTube money.
To pay $100 for the name and IP of a convention the size of Izumicom is 100% not normal. As a matter of fact, really, you wouldn't be totally off the mark if you said this exchange was more like a conditional giveaway than a sales transaction. I can't go into specifics because I haven't actually seen the contracts, and actually I'm told by Faisal that I can't see the
Dang, you got
contract because
me.
of clauses within them. But anyways, it's my understanding that contractual problems, rather than finances, were at the heart of why other potential buyers, or the ones that I spoke to at the very least, didn't actually go through with it. Obviously, I have no way of knowing for sure whether or not Dez's contract was identical to theirs, but at the very least, it seems like Dez's wasn't exactly something that most buyers would consider perfect either, as it had a clause in it that could result in ownership being reverted back to Dyad. According to Faisal, the contract with Dez says that if she decided to end the convention and not use the name, there is a clause saying Dyad could reclaim the name. But ownership is a vague term. Her company still owns the IP. I'd still need to reclaim the name and IP through a contract or agreement. I would not gain control of her company, but simply the ability to use the name Izumicom.
Oh, okay.
I've heard just about
that's
every
fine,
theory
right?
there is about why this con was given to Dez, despite her being such an extremely not great candidate, but the most common two among the people who I spoke to about it who were involved with the con tend to be either A, that finding a new owner was taking way more time and effort than Marlon and Faisal expected, and they just got to a point where they wanted to be done with the whole thing, and Dez was just the first person who threw her hat in the ring, who either didn't know or didn't care about the details of the contract, and B, that it was a decision fueled by spite toward the older Izumicom directors, some of whom attempted to buy the con, but ultimately didn't because of the contract. To re-emphasize, though, both of these are just speculation. For the time being, though, I'm more curious about why Dez was interested in owning the con. You know, did she genuinely feel like she could save it? Did she wrongfully assume that being the owner of a medium-sized con is a super profitable job? Did she just not want someone else to have it? You know, maybe she thought it'd be a lot simpler of a job than it actually was, or hey, you know, maybe it was something else altogether. I don't know, and in the absence of any word from Dez, perhaps I never will. In fact, I'll also probably never know why she didn't make sure her team was on the same page about how she really came into owning the con. Obviously, I can't say with total certainty whether or not anybody outside of she, Marlon, and Faisal knew the truth, but if nothing else, I can say with a lot of confidence that a lot of different people allege hearing a lot of different stories. At best, you could interpret this as Dez's horrible communication skills at work, and that
I would
she
really
was
say
just being
skills.
wildly misunderstood.
More as lack
very
thereof,
frequently.
you know?
But at worst, it's really easy to look at this and see someone who's intentionally lying, presumably so they can make it look like their shaky position of leadership is even somewhat credible in the eyes of their team. But, you know, regardless of how you want to interpret this, it's still really hard to hear about this and not feel like it's an ill omen of what's to come or something like that. But anyways, before I start rambling too much about this, let's go ahead and get back to that initial announcement Dez made about her ownership. Once the surprise had time to die down, the next feeling everyone shared was concern, and honestly, can you blame them? I mean, it's not exactly a huge stretch to be worried when you're told that you now have to take instructions from someone who has a track record of not following instructions. In other words, it was incredibly important for Dez to redeem her image in the eyes
Oh
of
no,
her new
what is wrong with that
you know,
light?
your first action upon entering a position of leadership is perhaps your most important, because that's what's going to reveal what your priorities are, and it's going to give your team a good idea of what to expect from you. So with all that being said, how was Dez going to set the tone for her leadership? How was she going to prove to everyone that the almost blacklisted slacker of 2015
Wait, was that Dan?
all in the past? Well, it's simple.
Oh yeah, I
You're
literally
gonna
just said that.
The
I was like,
idea
wait a
of
second.
assembling your team to have a meal together somewhere so you can all talk business, I mean, yeah, that should be totally fine. The business lunch is a strategy as old as time. You know, in theory, this shouldn't be a problem.
I have a banana peel on the ground. I'm gonna see if it's really slippery like it is in the cartoon.
Well, this business lunch, or dinner rather, did indeed set the tone for what Dez's leadership was going to be like, because by all accounts,
Bro, what is
it
this
was
garbage sword play?
incredibly chaotic. First of all, there was
Oh my
the
God.
suddenness of the whole thing.
No training at all.
Nobody that I spoke to about this could recall getting more than a week's notice about it, which was kind of a problem because a fair number of the directors didn't live in or close to OKC. But Izumicon's team was nothing if not dedicated, so despite all that, they still managed to be in OKC that weekend. Where
That's
in
very
OKC,
funny, Dan.
though, you may be wondering? Well, yeah, actually, they were wondering that too. It wasn't until pretty much the last possible second, according to the aforementioned people that I spoke to about this, that they had any idea where specifically they were supposed to be meeting, but that they ultimately settled on a Denny's, that they were dangerously close to filling to capacity since many of the directors had to
Hold on a second. I just want to
build
just
on a Denny's, that they were
I just want to spread out some slander. Denny's is awful and nobody should eat there. Go to IHOP. It's way better. There's my Denny's slander.
dangerously close to filling to capacity since many of the directors had to bring along their family members, and then Des had brought along her husband and two of her friends as her team. Yeah, crammed was the second most common word used to describe what this meeting was like, and the first, in case you were
Waffle
wondering,
House would be
was
good.
disorganized. Yeah,
That would be
many of the
hilarious.
directors could have, and would have, I'm sure, forgiven just how much difficulty Des had in getting them all in the same spot if Des had offered them even a single crumb of
I didn't know Denny's was like
inspiring
that.
leadership. But the directors recall her being really inconsistent throughout this meeting, saying
Hey, yo,
stuff
get off
like
Waffle
that
House.
she didn't want to change anything immediately before going on tangents about all the things she wanted to change. Their questions were given non-answers. Des didn't seem to have a particularly good understanding of how the con worked.
Oh wait, hold on a second. Fun fact: if this footage was taken from like the little lake or river or whatever in Oklahoma, it does not look like this anymore. There is no water in there ever. I promise you.
And this is all to say nothing of the experience that she very clearly lacked.
She was, most of it boiled down
Yeah,
to,
you know what? You're
I
fair.
Really love this
All right,
cause,
G,
I
I'll
want
give
it
you
to
that one.
succeed. No business plan, no talk of investors, no concept of management. I mean, the amount of information lacking was terrifying.
By the end of the meeting, the
Bro,
more
Kennedy,
optimistic
I have not
directors
seen
were
water
thinking, okay,
in that river
so,
in forever.
You know, Des clearly lacks experience and know-how, but, you know, maybe that'll encourage her to just leave the heavy lifting to us, you know? We can keep doing our jobs the way we always have, and Des will just kind of be sort of a puppet or a placeholder leader. Yeah, maybe we can get this to work out after all. Everyone else, on the other hand, could only think that Des was completely and utterly incompetent. Shortly after this meeting, Cisco became the first of Izumicon's directors to resign under Des's leadership, and he actually did so via a video.
After about
Yeah,
an
that
hour
water's-
of
that water's
counsel with
gone.
a number of close friends as well as the fellow leadership of Izumicom operations, I have decided that I will no longer serve as director for Izumicom, nor will I be volunteering in any capacity. I wanted you to know that the crux of my decision is very simple and frankly rests at your feet. I will not follow the leadership of someone who, of their own accord, decided they were not fit to follow my instructions. The basic tenet of security is never abandon your post. You broke that tenet, and you were likewise judged unfit for duty with security. I will not ask my people to follow instructions from me when I have to follow instructions from someone who is not fit to follow my directions.
Shortly after recording
that's tough.
this, Cisco would record another video explaining his decision to his fellow volunteers who weren't at the Denny's meeting. He then put the video up on Facebook where it was set to friends only. While the general public would certainly never see this video, a significant number of Izumicon volunteers still did. And even though this video didn't necessarily spread like wildfire, I still don't think it's a stretch to say that this video was still a signal, the first signal, as a matter of fact, that someone more or less from the outside looking in could have got that things over at Izumicon weren't exactly off to a great start, and things were only going to go downhill from here. Within the following days, weeks, and months of this meeting, many followed Cisco's example and sent in their resignations as well, but a core team of directors still decided to stay on board. Many of them were asked to take on responsibilities that were normally outside of their roles because of all the resignations. Presumably, this is also why Des would, at least somewhat frequently, try to offer directorial positions to some of her friends and other people involved in various facets of the con. In any case, throughout the planning process of Izumicon 2018, the turnover rate for convention leadership was not insignificant. The cosplay department, for example, proved to be a particularly difficult position to fill, and it was eventually reabsorbed into events, and therefore went through 3 different leaders. But anyways, the bottom line here is that throughout the planning of Izumicon 2018, there were a lot of resignations coming from a lot of different people, but there were a few experienced Izumicon directors who toughed it out and decided to stay with the con despite all the extra work. They didn't know it at the time, but they were effectively following Izumicon into its grave.
I wonder if all those people that joined on, well, I guess I don't wonder. I'm assuming they were, I don't know, misled about what all is like really happening. I feel like a lot of people didn't really understand the scope. But also this is just hindsight, I guess. So maybe the people that were coming on and, everybody who was giving them their jobs and stuff really believed that all this stuff was, going to happen, all that good stuff. So I don't know, maybe I'm just doing the whole hindsight thing.
Hey, from Izumicon 2018, I'm here to talk to you about everything Izumicon. Guys, this is a big year, and we got a lot of firsts. First thing I want to talk about.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, was there?
Here to talk to you about everything I want to talk about.
Okay.
We got a whole new owner. Her name's Des. She's worked with Izumicon in the past. She's worked with other conventions. She stepped on an owner at Izumicon this year, and she's going to try to make it a great convention. Not just a great convention. She's going to make this a welcoming convention
for Howard.
Fandoms in Oklahoma to come together and have a big party together. So let's talk to Des real fast.
Hey everyone, I am.
Oh, okay.
I am the new owner of Izumicon, and I am really looking forward to having an awesome Izumicon 2018 with all of you all. For this Izumicon, we're going to be having Blue Bunny cosplay. We are going to have Justin Nimmo. He's the Silver Power Ranger for Power Rangers in Space. And we will be having J. Michael Tatum. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Jason Tatum?
Thanks, Des. That sounds awesome.
Planning Izumicon under Dez's so-called leadership was, by all accounts, an absolute nightmare for everyone. For example, potential con-goers can tell you horror stories like about how disingenuous Dez was about blacklisting people from the con. The irony that she herself was very nearly blacklisted
I hope so,
years
Kennedy.
prior was evidently lost on her. Anyways, there were 2 documented instances where people were blacklisted, at least temporarily, and they were both for flimsy and or unapparent reasons. One was a former volunteer who was also one of the con's potential buyers. The cause given for blacklisting them was because they, quote, tried to manipulate their way into owning the con and started personal drama. Neither party would confirm nor elaborate on the incident at the time, and when I tried reaching out to the volunteer, I didn't get a response. Anyways, the other instance was with a con goer called AJ. Now, a quick disclaimer, as far as I can tell, Des was the only person within Izumicon who was at the center of this whole thing from the start. That she's the one who made this decision, seemingly without any input from anyone else within Izumicon until after she did it. And it's because of that, and because a lot of Izumicon-related posts from around this time have been wiped from the internet, but more on that later, I didn't really have a lot of hard evidence to go off of for this incident. For example, there's only one surviving email I was shown about this, and while it's not explicit about banning AJ from the event itself,
Not me.
is explicit about blocking her from the Izumicon social media, and that no one outside of Dez had much specific info to go off of while this was happening. Nonetheless,
Okay.
AJ is under the impression that she was at least temporarily blacklisted from the event, and another director who I spoke to, who was eventually roped into all this, also believes that AJ was meant to have been blacklisted from the event. So with that out of the way, what happened? Well, in AJ's words, at the end, I was allowed back and not blacklisted, as it had no grounds. Dez believed that I made a nasty criticism about the con and posted in the Izumicon Facebook group, then wouldn't tell me what the comment was, and just blocked me and blacklisted me. But if the staff felt that I was just being negative, no one said so. All of this action was being done with no communication toward me. Now,
Oh, that's grimy.
for context, AJ wasn't exactly just some completely random con goer. No, AJ was actually a former con volunteer. I've been asked not to go into specifics, and those details are frankly irrelevant to the story anyways. So, suffice to say, AJ loved the con, but she was, in the eyes of a lot of Izumicon's leadership, a handful. So then, was Dez just looking for an excuse, no matter how flimsy, to not have to deal with AJ? Was she trying to inspire fear among people who might have otherwise criticized the con? Was this whole thing just a misunderstanding? Or maybe this was just a knee-jerk reaction that went too far? It's hard to tell for sure, but judging by the fact that the decision was soon reversed, I'm hoping/guessing that means that somehow Dez at least eventually agreed that she was being unfair to AJ. Nonetheless, this whole thing became a bit of a spectacle and didn't exactly leave a good impression of Dez to those in Izumicon's community who watched it unfold. And then there's the directors and volunteers who stuck around, whose Dez-related horror stories
Wait.
are 1,000 times worse.
Hold on a second. Wait, why is AJ important? Why? What was? Well, I mean, I know she was a volunteer, but why was it such a big deal? Was it a big deal because she was a volunteer before? Is that what it was? I don't know if you're gonna get into it more. Because she was temporarily blacklisted. I guess, like, was that such a big deal because she was a volunteer before? I'm assuming that's the case. And maybe people liked her or did not like her. Temporarily blacklisted for making benign criticism about the call. Okay. Yeah. I know that part. No, it was a big deal because people saw someone getting blacklisted for making. Oh, okay. That's why it was a big deal. Okay. That makes more sense. I couldn't put two and two together. Gotcha. Okay.
Worse. For example, my personal favorite comes from the con's rapid response team leader, who alleges
Shea Gillis
that at
Alexander,
some stage,
Chris
Dez
Paul
told the venue that Izumicon security was fully armed. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and say that one more time just for emphasis. It's been alleged that Dez
Oh my
told
God.
the venue that Izumicon had fully armed security. Yeah, if this allegation is true, then beyond being a huge mistake at best or blatant lie at worst, Dez telling this to the venue also could have turned into a massive liability if the rapid response team leader hadn't corrected it. And there's another story
That's
that I think all of you are gonna
crazy.
be particularly interested in, and that's about how Dez got a videographer to help with the con's marketing. And part of that marketing involved recording interviews with some of Izumicon's would-be guests. But because the con, well, imploded, most of these interviews just
Wait, she looks
never got
familiar.
published.
Wait, who's that? Wait, who's this girl on the left? She looks familiar. Do we know her? Is she from something? The name doesn't. I don't think it means anything. What does she do? Where is she from? Is she like in a movie or something? What is she part of an anime? I'm assuming part of an anime because we're talking about an anime video. She's a VA for what's popular stuff. Okay. Oh no. Well, okay. One Piece. Okay. Of course, High School DxD. Okay. I've probably just seen her somewhere from, I don't know, Brandon Day
And
or
the
something
only
like
one
that.
that did get published, the one with Jade Saxton, was promptly taken down and now only exists as an unlisted YouTube video.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. That's going to wrap us up for Izumicon's behind the scenes conversation.
Yeah,
He's
can't
gonna
wait
be
to
there,
see you
guys.
guys.
Come see her at
in
the convention.
August. I'm really excited to come and hang out with you guys.
A young Robin,
Nice day.
apparently.
Bye.
But as wild as all that is, I think nothing encapsulates the chaos of Dez's leadership quite as well as the messy story of Izumicon's promotional art contest. So here's what happened. When Dez got Izumicon, the con lost the rights to its mascot character Izumi, and I guess Dez wasn't privy to the fact that, hey, art costs money to make, and especially when it's art that's gonna be plastered all over your con's marketing materials, yeah, odds are it's gonna cost you a good chunk of change. An anonymous would-be
I love that
attendee
those are napkins.
alleges
That's
having
so
seen
funny.
Dez posting in the Artist Alley International Facebook group asking about what would be a fair price for such art, and being shocked that she was told to expect no less than a few hundreds of dollars. This lines up pretty well with what Carnival Grotesque, another artist who we'll talk more about in just a moment, told me that, quote, Dez asked me what sort of prices that she should be expecting from artists she commissioned. Apparently everyone she spoke to had exorbitant
And it's funny
prices.
every
I
time
explained
knowing that
it
they're
was best
napkins.
practice to add additional fees to commission prices if your art's going to be used for promotional material, because artists lose revenue while the company using it gains revenue by using their art. She grumbled about it and asked what my prices would be. Spoilers, they would normally be super high. So now, faced with the reality that, well, art costs money, the Artist Alley director alleges that Dez decided that she wanted Izumicon to do what every other corporate machine who wants art but doesn't want to pay for it does. To throw a contest and let the winner get paid with the privilege of having their art featured by the con, as well as 2 special event tickets. Yeah, not the con badges, but special event tickets. So, basically they'd be getting free add-ons to their badges, but not their actual badges.
That's
Dez still wanted them to pay
crazy.
for those. Foreshadowing alert, Dez not wanting to give away free badges, even to people who should normally get them, is going to be a recurring element in this story.
Oh, wait,
But,
hold on.
yeah, to get
Wait,
back
that
to the
means-
contest prize,
That means
in
you
case it
bought
wasn't already
a
obvious,
ticket. Well,
this
that means
is
you bought a
all just a
ticket, Kennedy.
dressed up way of saying that the winning artists were going to get paid with exposure, which itself is a dressed up way of saying that they wouldn't get paid. Despite her
That's
concerns
literally
about
what
the
it
whole
said.
thing, Ashley, Izumicon's Artist Alley director,
Oh, okay.
was given the task of operating the contest, but unfortunately that didn't really stop Dez from trying to involve herself throughout the process anyways.
Those are the Izumicon badges from earlier years. I was at Izumicon 2007 and 17.
Yeah, this is where things start to get
I-
messy. So,
I guess I was assuming that you paid for it in
originally, the contest was supposed to
advance.
end on Halloween 2017, and it did.
But I
and
guess not.
The winner was an artist called Via That One Artist. Except she was supposed to be one of 2 winners, and a second winner hadn't been picked,
Yeah.
presumably because there were so few entries. Yeah, can't imagine why people weren't lining up to enter. Huh, weird, who'da thunk it. Anyways, shortly after Via is contacted congratulating her on her win, Izumicon announces that it's just extending the art contest, which at this point everyone thought it had already ended, so a lot of people just saw this as a second contest altogether. Although I don't think this was made public information at the time. It's possible that it got posted on Facebook at some point and left unarchived, but even if that's the case, then that would mean that this was only mentioned on Facebook. But anyways, the only difference was that now the prize was being slightly upgraded. The winner would now get a free table in the Artist's Alley and 2 weekend badges. And luckily, yeah, Via's prize was getting upgraded as well. Foreshadowing alert, Dez eventually relenting on giving free badges to the people who'd normally get them is also a recurring element in this story. But anyways, while this upgrade was definitely a step in the right direction, make no mistake, this is still a far cry from fair payment for
you better watch
doing
out, Kennedy,
so much
to
of
go.
Con's official art. Nonetheless,
penny.
the contest continued. Fast forward to late November. Dez sends
Not
a
even
message
corny,
to
just
Carnival
pennies.
Grotesque about a post she was going to make in the Artist Alley International group. The post was about Izumicon's art contest, basically saying, yeah, we need a lot of art, we're running a contest, but I don't think that's going to be enough. She goes on to say that she's consulted with other artists, that she can't afford them, and that she was wondering if anyone in the group would offer some kind of affordable commission package deal. As a side note, by the way, I asked Via if she had any idea that Dez was doing this, and she said, I didn't know this. I felt like after winning that contest that my art would have been finally used in a professional sort of way, which was a dream at the time. But finding this out is kind of a slap in the face. But if she was worrying about my workload rather than the quality of my art, I can definitely see her point. But rest assured, I was, and still kind of am, an artist with a pretty quick turnaround, so the load wasn't much of a concern at the time for me. In any case, the post received one reply that would particularly stand out, one from a local artist called Purwitch who'd been wanting to visit Izumicon and offered to help in exchange for an artist alley table and 2 badges. Ultimately, Izumicon would end up taking her up on this offer a few months later. More specifically, she'd be asked to handle the t-shirt designs. But in the meantime, another artist won the second contest, which ended on December 3rd, and for a while...
Wait, to be clear, is the second contest just the first contest that was extended, or or is this the second one that I might have missed a part? It's still just the okay, great.
It really seemed like Izumicon finally had a plan ready for who was going to do what regarding art. Or, you know, at least that would have been the case if Des hadn't gotten into contact with another artist and childhood friend of hers, Carnival Grotesque. More specifically, the problem was that she did this without any input from Ashley, so when Des told Carnival to contact Ashley for more details, Ashley didn't know what to tell them.
I feel uncomfortable with this
Ashley
drawing.
Completely out of the loop on this decision. Ashley recalled to me that it was honestly a huge mess because Des would communicate one thing to me and then turn around and, like she had completely forgotten that we had it planned out already, would go off on her own thing, and I'd have to respond to people she had contacted and basically tell them that we already had it covered. There was an idea at some stage to let Carnival do the site art, but the person who found Create Izumicon website added to their already overwhelmed list of responsibilities opted for a bare bones design. And so, with all the other tasks accounted for, there was just nothing left for Carnival to do. And so, despite the promises that Des had made, Carnival was told that their art wouldn't be needed and that they'd have to pay for their artist alley table at Izumicon after all if they still wanted one.
Nah, that's crazy. What?
Been pretty limited up until this point, so understandably this left them feeling pretty frustrated. As for Via, Purwitch, and the second winner, well, although their art was still going to be used, or at least that was the plan, unfortunately all their work would end up going to waste, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Bottom line, this whole situation was a mess. And remember, this is only one of many similar stories that pretty much anyone who stayed at Izumicon can tell you if you ask them about what kind of a leader Des was. Whether or not Des herself was under any illusions about the quality of her guidance is unclear, but she did at least seem to be aware that even early on there was a lot of distrust toward her from Izumicon's old guard. And, you know, in fairness, she was right about that much. After that meeting at Denny's, the bar for her leadership was remarkably low. But even so, nothing could have prepared anyone for what she was about to do next. So, by the time August 20-
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll be right back. I gotta go to the restroom. BRB.
2018,
We back.
aka the
We're
month
back.
of the con rolled around, Des knew that the con still owed a lot of money. To be more specific, Des didn't give the precise details to everybody. In fact, her go-to line when asked about finances seemed to just be, "Money is tight." But based on surviving screenshots of budgetary info and the message that Des sent on July 30th, the con needed somewhere between 30 and 40 grand to happen. The con, however, had only collected a little over 20 grand from Square and Eventbrite, the third-party ticket vendors from which prospective vendors and attendees respectively could buy their tables and badges. A semi-secret emergency meeting was called on August 4th,
XQC
but,
veggie.
you know, by that point, there really wasn't a lot that anybody could do. The con was still several thousands of dollars short, and Des had failed
The
to secure any
pennies.
sponsorships for the con, and that included both Loot and XP and Unlocked, both of whom it's been alleged that Des attempted to get sponsorships from. It also possibly included Midwest City's Convention and Visitors Bureau, who Des alleged in the email about her aforementioned horror con that never really went anywhere, was
I forgot about the horror
giving
con.
$500 to Izumicom. That being said, despite what she says in the email, I couldn't find any mentions of them on archives of Izumicon 2018's site. I emailed the person she claimed to be her contact within the bureau, but I never got a response. But going back to Loot and XP and Unlocked, since there's just way more to talk about there, Loot and XP's is the less complicated of the two stories, so we'll go ahead and start with it. So basically, they were a local game store who helped run and supply Izumicon's tabletop room for a couple of years.
Huh,
In
I've never heard.
exchange,
I haven't
they
actually heard of
were
them before.
Basically treated as volunteers. You know, they got free badges, they could hang out in the staff areas, all that good stuff. Allegedly,
cool.
the first time that Loot's owner, DC, heard about the con going under new ownership is when one of the old directors told him that Des was
That's
bad
sad.
news. Yeah, definitely not a good first impression, but unfortunately, one that would be telling of the rocky experience Loot would have with her. DC wouldn't receive any kind of official word from Izumicon until November of 2017, when he got a message from one of the newer directors asking if he'd heard anything yet.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. Hey, sorry, guys. Let me talk to you guys. Dude. I think it was Des who buzzed. I just forget it. I don't mind buzzing directly if I need to. Des keeps doing they discuss having limit, but I told her I don't think that's accurate. I just want to make sure you guys are part of the concept. Okay.
Which, well, he hadn't heard anything particularly concrete. Yeah, it turns out there was a lot of confusion surrounding someone getting back to him, but it was settled now, at least. Never a fan of documentation, much to my dismay, Des later invited DC to an in-person meeting in February. DC gave me the disclaimer that at the time of our talking about this, he was receiving treatment for a memory disorder, though he doesn't recall much getting done at this meeting because allegedly, Des was preoccupied with watching a child pretty much the entire time. Des would therefore conduct much of her business with Loot and XP via a phone call with DC and his business partner. DC further alleges that Des wanted Loot to sponsor Izumicon and tried to get him to pay for both his badge and the badges of anyone else within Loot who was going to be at the con. He said no, of course, and told her that this hasn't been the way his relationship with Izumicon ever worked. Des eventually relented and said that Loot could be a sponsor for the con without actually having to pay for it. She'd also later say in a Facebook message that DC's business partner couldn't be present in any of the future phone calls. Yeah, a peculiar choice which DC attributes to the fact that his business partner takes zero BS, which is probably why, in his opinion, Des didn't like him very much. As a side note, by the way, I'm very curious about what Des's intended benefits for sponsors were, because I haven't seen Loot's logo anywhere on Izumicon's website, and while the con's Facebook page and group are long gone now, I still can't find any tweets about them either, and that's sponsorship 101 right there. In any case, at its core, DC's claim more or less boils down to highly questionable leadership on Des's part that could have been resolved easily if she had even a pinch of experience or know-how, which is very much the experience that I had with Des at the time too, actually. So personally, I find DC's story incredibly believable.
I figured. Semi-related.
So, I sent an email to Ladder, to Dez in February 2018 because I heard that the con was under new ownership, and I couldn't help but notice that despite the con being 6 months away, there was still no info on the site about panel apps. I was also wondering about how Dez intended to reimburse panelists. Namely, I was wondering if she was either going to keep doing what Izumicon had been doing, or at least the year prior, and only giving free badges to panelists who did 6 hours or more worth of panels, if she was going to do what a lot of larger cons do and give free badges to every panel organizer and then maybe a set number of co-panelists, or if she just had a different plan altogether.
Okay.
She replies to me a few days later with a link to a Google Doc, which didn't answer my reimbursement question, so I ask again. She says, "We will be resuming this policy." I do not know what policy she is referring to, and I ask her to be more clear. Finally, and with information contradicting what was in the doc, but I'm thinking that, she's the owner and I can screenshot this, so it's whatever. Anyways, she tells me that any panelist doing even one panel will get a free badge. Awesome.
Nice.
Fast forward to June. I'd recently got back from being out of town for a while. I got a new job. I was really busy, and in the midst of all this, I just kind of goofed up and missed the deadline for panel applications. I sent an email asking if I could put in a late application. After all, the deadline had only passed about a week ago at this point, so I figured it'd be worth a shot. A month passes before I hear anything back, at which point a brand new event director tells me that the deadline for panel apps is being extended. I didn't know this at the time, but evidently it was almost certainly because Izumicon received remarkably fewer panel apps that year than it had in previous years. Yeah, can't imagine why. Anyways, I'm told that I can do my panel apps via email, and I do, and
Wait, panel info? Wait, was this? Wait, why is this why is the panel info blocked out? Is this something super secret? Wait, is panel info just what your panel was going to be about? Is there something else in there? What's the sauce in there? Yo, what's behind the fuzz, bro? Okay. Okay. Okay, it's your panel application. Okay.
then I ask how they want to handle getting my badge information. The event director tells me that the con's new owner, that Dez, was making it a new policy this year that panelists would basically just be a different flavor of volunteer, meaning that they would need to put in at least 18 hours of work before they could qualify for a free badge, and that my panels would only count towards 6 of those hours. This could not be any more opposite of what Dez had told me several months earlier if it tried. Now,
Logic
obviously,
stupid.
by this point, I'd heard through the grapevine that Dez wasn't exactly a well full of experience from which the con was now drawing generously from, but still, this was the moment where that all became real to me. It was where her lack of experience simply could not have been any less subtle to me, even if it
painted itself purple and danced naked on top of a harpsichord, singing...
Dez is inexperienced.
Luckily for me, though, I had a screenshot of the owner of the con, of Dez telling me that anyone doing a panel gets a free badge, and I showed this to the event director, who, in hindsight, I feel really bad for because this simply could not have been any fun to deal with, new to the position or not. Anyways, the event director gets back to me saying that Dez says that I can have a Saturday-only badge for free. Something that I remember thinking was really weird because the con wasn't selling single-day badges on Eventbrite. But, regardless, I say awesome. In that case, please go ahead and schedule any panels I have that make it into the con for that Saturday. But then, a few days later, the con made a now-lost announcement via Facebook that panelists who applied before a certain date would get free weekend-long badges. I ask if that includes me and say that my panels can be scheduled for whatever day if it does, and lo and behold, it did include me, and
my dear, if you ever hold on a second, if you ever see an email that says "my dear," go ahead and throw that email in the trash, okay? It ain't never gonna bring no good, okay? Anytime I see "my dear," I instantly ignore it. Frame 1.
Sort of that. The last thing I'd hear from the con was an email on August 6th saying that the schedule would be up soon, but as you can probably imagine, nothing ever seemed to come of that. And just like with DC, this whole situation felt I don't know. I don't want to blow this out of proportion and say that it was
So typically when I see an email that says like "my dear," it's usually a scam. Actually, usually it's just a scam or some kind of weird advertisement, some kind of phishing scheme. When I see "my dear," it's always that. I guess, well, not always, because when I'm at work, if there's like some weird like advertising thing or whatever for like a company way out in like China or India or whatever, they'll say "my dear." That's whatever. You're about to be invited to MLM. Yeah, that's exactly what I see. So when I see "my dear," I instantly check out.
totally unacceptable behavior, because it wasn't. You know, stuff happens. But being there, you could definitely tell that there was a weird vibe within Izumicon, that there were probably some internal issues surrounding communication and Dez's increasingly obvious lack of know-how, you know? In any case,
oh, Heather, I remember Heather.
The point of me telling you
I
all
remember.
that is that the idea of DC basically having to tell Dez how Loot's relationship with Izumicon worked in previous years, a relationship that probably would have been pretty easy to predict even with a little bit of experience. You know, most cons do have tabletop rooms after all. And then Dez eventually relenting to giving away free badges after trying to squeeze any last penny she could get from someone who otherwise wouldn't and shouldn't be paying for a badge.
Slight nitpick. Right here, you talked about you know, her not wanting to squeeze out every little penny, but you didn't show the penny screen right here, and I think that was a missed opportunity, to be honest. You know.
Edge, yeah, I noticed a lot of similarities in our stories, so even though he doesn't have many screenshots, I still find his story pretty believable. Furthermore, it reminds me of yet another similar story, this time by Jaden, a would-be member of the press at Izumicon who had emails to back up his story. Essentially, Dez had pre-approved a press badge for him almost a year in advance to vlog at the event, but lo and behold, that didn't seem to work out either, as only a few weeks before the con, he was told by Izumicon's press director that the press team was full, so while he couldn't get a badge, he could still attend as a regular attendee.
No, that's crazy.
They promised him a pre-approved press badge. I don't know if this was rooted in a problem on Dez's end, the press director's end, a mix of both, or maybe even something else altogether, but it's nonetheless consistent with this, well, what appears to be a sort of pattern of misunderstandings and miscommunications surrounding badges. But before I veer too off topic again, yeah, so that's the story about Loot's experience with Izumicon, and mine and Jaden's for that matter, but it's my video, so I'll do what I want. But anyways, despite all that, things were still much more complicated when it came to the other alleged possible sponsor, Unlocked. Yeah, brace yourself for this one. So, Unlocked was a short-lived platform for voice actors to stream and interact with their fans, and it was still pretty new at this point. It launched back in 2017. When asked about it, Dez's contact within Unlocked couldn't remember how precisely talks about getting Unlocked to stream at Izumicon began, but at some stage between late 2017 or early 2018, well, this happened. The idea was that Unlocked would stream some panels, some exclusive content would get made, everyone would have a great time, and the whole thing would just be a wonderful success. As a matter
Doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Check this out. That's why those aforementioned interviews that never saw the light of day were made. They were supposed to get posted on Unlocked.
We're doing these interview series on Unlocked. It's the new home of our behind-the-scenes footage, and I know
a lot of the finer details of this deal have become lost because, like the seeming majority of the rest of the cons planning, Dez seemed to prefer conducting business over the phone via Skype calls and in-person meetings, so, you know, ways that wouldn't leave any physical proof. And that, in addition to the small number of people that Dez involved in making this deal happen, made this peculiar part of
she was probably just there,
especially difficult to navigate. Nonetheless, I'll do my best to tell you what I can. So, it's unclear how many people she said this to, but there is physical evidence of Dez talking about getting a sponsorship from Unlocked at least once. And yet, when I spoke to her contact within Unlocked, their exact words when I asked if there was ever any intention for Unlocked to give money to Izumicon were, and I quote, hell no. Based on a message that she sent to the videographer on August 6th, Dez's claim seemed to be that Unlocked had been planning on sponsoring Izumicon, but that at some point she criticized the app's then current viability, and that her contact took this to heart and shared it to others within Unlocked, and that it had such a profound effect that it prompted them to rework the app from scratch, and only weeks before the con, no less. And that, in addition to the app's then iOS exclusivity, is why Izumicon received no financial support from Unlocked. Her contact said that they would speak to investors about finding some other way of supporting the con, but nothing ever seemed to come of that. Meanwhile, Dez's contact within Unlocked's claim is that they never had any intention of sponsoring the con or giving it money in any capacity, and they were really confused about how Dez might have reached the conclusion that they were. So, fact. There's a lot of variation when it comes to cons organizing sponsorship contracts, and a lot of it varies based on the size of the con and the level of the sponsorship. That being said, I spoke to a few people who've worked on the con side and the brand side of organizing con sponsorships, and here's a couple of general takeaways that I got. For starters, larger sponsorships are almost exclusively made at least several months in advance, and in some especially high-level cases, it can even be over a year in advance via multi-year contracts. And on the flip side of that, lower-level sponsorships, while it's generally advised for their own sake that they can organize a sponsorship at least a few months in advance, some cons can be pretty flexible about making sponsorships happen relatively last minute if they need to. And the smaller the con, the more flexible they're likely to be. When contracts are drawn up, the payment is usually either upfront or made within 30 to 90 days of the contract being signed. We know based on the would-be Unlocked interviews and a screenshot of an ultimately unused Messenger group chat that Des made for everyone involved in this deal, that Unlocked and Izumicon were, you know, in at least some sort of contact with each other well over 6 months in advance of the con. If Unlocked really was meant to be a sponsor, then there was plenty of time for contracts to be drawn up and for money to be paid. Opinion. Dez's story, just in general, is extremely naive to the point of being outlandish, but it's especially so in the way it paints how sponsorship relationships work. Namely, in that her story, Unlocked is just kinda able to say, hey, JK, we're not gonna support the con after all, literally weeks before the event, despite several months of contact, and then they can just decide that they're no longer gonna give the con money, even though under normal circumstances, they would have signed a contract and paid by now. Furthermore, there's seemingly no repercussions for them doing this, and not even a promise that they'll sponsor the con the next year instead, or something like that. Dez's story gives off the vibes of someone who doesn't know anything about sponsorship organization, making some kind of fanciful guess at how it works, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's exactly that. It's a fanciful guess, and in this case, it certainly doesn't seem like an accurate one. Allegation. The video
it sounds like there was never actually any kind of sponsor with this, right?
Unlocked, and recalled to me that she said there was money and that they would be a sponsor. But in the 1 or 2 calls I had with her Unlocked contact, it was never discussed. They just said that they wanted to stream there and that they also wanted to put all our promo videos on there. I don't recall her contact mentioning the sponsorship. Fact. Even from the start, an Android version seemed to at least be something on Unlock's radar. Although Unlock's Android version wouldn't launch until December of 2018, signups to participate in an eventual beta could be made as early as Unlock's launch month, September of 2017. Said Unlocked co-founder Bryce Papenbrook in an interview with ANN in February 2018, "We're bringing some really awesome content to the app, and we're in mid-development on an Android release. I'd say that one of the biggest requests we're getting is to come out with this app for Android, and it's just all a work in progress." opinion.
I hate being able
The
to
idea
access
that
actual
Dez's
things,
criticism
you know?
of Unlocked was so meaningful that it prompted the app to rework itself from scratch seems extremely unlikely, to put it nicely. Furthermore, everyone at Unlocked knew that it was an iOS exclusive from the start. You know, somehow the idea that they had only just then become aware of it suddenly and then wanted to back out of supporting the con because of this seems also extremely unlikely, to put it nicely. Also, literally, where did this 70% of potential users number come from? Like, literally where? Is this supposed to be potential users in general, or potential users within Izumicon? Either way, cite your source. Allegation. According to Dez's Unlocked contact, the app's then iOS exclusivity had nothing to do with why they would or wouldn't have been at the con. It had nothing to do with exclusivity and everything to do with talks that just never progressed at the speed Unlocked needed them to, and then eventually the news that the con, well, imploded, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. When asked about whether or not Unlocked would have been at the con in the event that it, happened, her contact said maybe. In any case, regardless of how you want to interpret what I've nicknamed the Unlocked arc, the bottom line here is nonetheless that money was tight, and that despite what Dez was hoping, Izumicon wouldn't be getting any financial support from Unlocked. Or Loot and XP for that matter. The con was effectively still at square one, which is a dangerous place to be with less than a month until the event. Tell you what,
ain't got
more
money.
dangerous is when you think you're at square one when you're actually even further back than that. And unfortunately, they didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly where Izumicon's leadership
And that's because
was.
of Sajam.
Let's go back to that meeting on August 4th. It was becoming increasingly obvious to everyone that the con was having money problems, but nobody had an idea just how bad things truly were. Different people became suspicious of Dez at different times, but this seems to be the turning point where even the people who wanted to believe in Dez were starting to see things differently.
Ooh,
and what
that's
do I mean
tough.
by that? Per documentation shared with me by a former Izumicon director, Dez was the only person with access to Izumicon's funding. The money made via Eventbrite and Square was forwarded to a bank account owned and operated by her.
I did see that, Dan,
pulled
yes.
money from it. And worth mentioning, by the way, is that even by the time this meeting happened, Dez already had pulled money from it. More specifically, there's
wait, what?
records of her using Izumicon money on her phone bill, an Amazon Prime subscription, and a car.
Yo,
Allegedly, she
what?
justified these purchases by saying that she needed them.
She
for
got
the
away
con,
with that?
and presumably due to her unemployment, she couldn't afford them without dipping into the con's money. And assuming that's true, then I'm sure then maybe there was some
Oh, wait,
dipping into the con's money.
what was that note? Oh my god, it was so fast. That Dez was broke / unemployed at the time doesn't seem to be contested. As you'll see later, Dez plainly admits to spending this money. When I say assuming that's true, that refers to the allegation that she justified her using the money on these things by claiming that she needed them to help run the con. Okay, got
That's
it.
true, then I'm sure then maybe there was some truth to that, and that's probably why nobody really argued with her about it at the time, though silently they were still very concerned. But that concern became amplified when, in the months leading up to the meeting, Izumicon's directors couldn't help but notice that she was posting about stuff like getting some new tattoos and allegedly going on vacations as well. More specifically, their concerns centered around how she was suddenly able to afford all these things. So now that you know that, you can probably understand why Izumicon's directors felt suspicious of Dez when they allegedly started noticing that money that the con should have had simply didn't seem to be there. Furthermore, those that I spoke to about this meeting in detail recalled an incident where two parties had offered to loan Izumicon a very significant amount of money under the condition that Dez showed them exactly what happened to the money that the con had already collected. But Dez, to everyone's immense confusion, wouldn't—
Wait, hold on a second. Wait, is she just committing embezzlement? Is she just embezzling the money? Is that what's going on right now? Because that's what this sounds like. 10 gazillion. Yo, this Bitcoin goes crazy. This sounds like embezzlement though. She she's misappropriating the funds.
Do
Okay.
it, effectively shutting down Izumicon's best chance at getting the money it needed for reasons that nobody could seem to comprehend. In fact, it's been alleged that when people would ask her about what happened to the money, she'd do anything from giving a dismissive and unspecific answer to saying to talk to her lawyer. Screenshots of conversations Des had with a then friend around this time show Des talking about not having to surrender the receipts if she doesn't want to, which she very much doesn't seem like she does. As a matter of fact, she goes so far as to say that she has, quote, nothing to hide, right before alluding to something she admitted and didn't hide. Presumably that something is spending Izumicon's money. In fact, she'd plainly say in another message to that then friend that she personally spent some money and was honest about it. She claims to have spent $1,800 of the con's money. This is the same amount that surviving documentation given to me by a former Izumicon director has listed for Dez's claimed expenses. So it's without question then that Dez definitely spent at least $1,800 of the money that was supposed to be going toward Izumicon. It's impossible to say for absolute certain whether or not she spent more than that, but in light of all the evidence against her, that seemed to be the conclusion that most, if not all of the directors, reached at that meeting. And to be clear, it's a very logical conclusion to reach. Dez was the only person with access to the money. Dez seems to be spending quite a bit of money lately, and Dez already had a proven history of spending money that was meant for the con. You know, you don't exactly need to be Sherlock Holmes for this. But regardless of the specifics of that meeting, everyone seems to have left it feeling a huge sense of dread. The bottom line was that the con didn't have the money that it needed, and even by her own admission, Des had spent at least $1,800 of the money that was supposed to be for the con. The Izumicon directors felt more in the dark about how Des was handling the con's inner workings than ever, and the con was only weeks away. And worst of all, things were still only gonna get worse from here. Everyone that I spoke to about this general time period for the con claims that it's around this time that they stopped getting any kind of contact or response from Des, that she started ghosting all of them. And sure enough, screenshots of a conversation between Des and a then friend show Des saying that she's going dark and getting a lawyer. And looking through my own documentation of the con and other documents that others have shown me, August 6th and 7th seem to have been the last few days where contact from the directors to people like panelists or would-be members of the press
Bro, she took the money and ran!
Somewhat normal. But the directors
That's
were
crazy!
trying to navigate an increasingly difficult situation, and very quickly they'd realized that they didn't exactly have a lot of options left. Allegedly, they considered taking out a personal loan to cover the venue, but they soon realized that they wouldn't have money left over for other expenses like hotel rooms, shirts, and badges. One of the directors told me, "We couldn't in good conscience allow a supporter to loan the con money when he wasn't likely to get any of it back." So finally, on August 11th, the directors did the only thing they felt they still could. They resigned. According to one of them, in a then public post they'd make about it almost a week later, all the directors found out something was going on when we were asking what was taking so long to get answers back for our budgets, the quotes we had gotten, and contracts that still hadn't been signed when the owner finally said, "Nope, not giving you any info, talk to my lawyer," and went dark. We couldn't get in touch with her for over a week, so we all decided to resign because we didn't want any legal backlash coming back to us for something that was completely out of our control. We aren't part of the LLC that owns Izumicon. We aren't partners with the owner. We don't have access to any records and can't make any official announcement without the owner's consent because of fear of legal backlash. We're just volunteers. We can't do anything.
Wait, that's crazy. But I guess it makes sense, right? Because, like, if you're just a volunteer, you have no, I guess, like, legal grounds based on, like, the IP or whatever. So, like, as a volunteer, you can't say it's canceled. The most you can say is we all are stepping away, and there is nobody currently that we know of working on this. Oh my God, that's crazy.
And so they edited the website to list all the directorial roles as completely vacant, and with heavy hearts, they washed their hands of this convention. Pretty much the only other signal that anyone else was immediately given that something had happened were resignation emails from directors like Ashley who had to tell their contacts about their resignations, though they weren't specific about the details. One of these emails, however, mentioned that the official announcement would be posted on Monday, August 13th, but that for legal reasons they wouldn't go into detail on what happened. And speaking of legal reasons, or more specifically the fear of legal ramifications, as was mentioned earlier, that's why nobody in Izumicon's directorial circle said anything else about this publicly until later on. The con was Dez's responsibility at the end of the day, and with their resignations, they were no longer in a position to speak on behalf of Izumicon in an official capacity. But despite all this, that still doesn't necessarily mean that they were totally silent about this either. For starters,
Just make a
DC
YouTube
from
video.
Luke XP quickly got contacted by not just one, but two of the newly former directors. The first one to contact him did so via WhatsApp, which he can no longer access, but he did still have screenshots from the second one to contact him. I'll be honest, you don't want to be associated with this con. Not at this point. Trust me on this. With the context of knowing what happened that very day, these are very haunting messages to get, and he wasn't the only one to get messages like these either. Perhaps the most interesting one was reportedly sent to Aslan, SoonerCon's then chairwoman, who recalls Dez seeking her out for advice around this time. More specifically, the precise timing of this conversation is a little fuzzy because she didn't save screenshots, and this conversation took place via text message, so they've long since been deleted, but Amber, more specifically SoonerCon's director of communications, yeah, there's a surprising number of Ambers in the local con organizing community, but I digress. This Amber recalls hearing Aslan talking about these messages at the time, and frankly, I'm inclined to believe them both, since the idea that Dez sought advice, especially from Aslan,
Oh, is that
really
Smash?
doesn't seem
I think that's Smash.
unusual,
I think that was
especially
Smash 4
considering
probably.
not just Dez's inexperience,
Maybe Ultimate.
but also the fact that Dez volunteered at SoonerCon in 2017. In any case, here's what Aslan alleges happened. Basically, Dez approached her asking for advice because, well, obviously things weren't going so well. Aslan suggested issuing refunds, getting a lawyer, and filing for bankruptcy. Dez didn't like this idea for
I
two
can tell
reasons.
these things.
One, she felt that the con's current problems were her team's fault for leaving, and two, she just didn't have the money to issue refunds. This confused Aslan, and she asked Dez what happened to the money, and sure enough, that's when Dez stopped responding to her as well. But in addition to unique situations like those of DC and Aslan, a handful of miscellaneous people, most of whom were involved in various facets of Izumicon, received anonymously sourced messages saying that all the directors resigned, but the main one that got spread around to the public was one that was sent out on the 13th.
Okay, wait, what is it? On Saturday, all directions resigned as of noon. Ethan needs to be filled. There's no announcement by the convention ownership. Based on the circumstances surrounding these developments and the lack of information from the convention ownership, all convention attendees vendors are strongly encouraged to contact the owner before further investing in the convention, preparing or lodging. Oh, that's how far away is it from the convention at this point? When was the convention date supposed to be? Because if this was sent on or I guess if this was sent sometime in August, I'm assuming the 11th, maybe. Okay, weeks.
You know, the day that it was believed that Dez would make a formal cancellation announcement. Nobody seems to know for an absolute fact just who sent these
God, that's
messages,
horrible.
but given their timing and knowledge of the situation, I think it's a reasonable assumption that it was either one of the directors or perhaps someone close to their circle. But, you know, honestly, it really doesn't matter exactly who sent these messages because regardless of their source, their effect was still the same. These messages, in tandem with all the other weird signals that everyone was getting from the con, gave the would-be attendees plenty of reasons to start asking questions. Or, you know what? Actually, it's more accurate to say that they would have been asking questions if Dez had let them. It was around this time that Izumicon's Eventbrite page stopped letting people buy tickets. People who tried posting in the Izumicon Facebook group were either having their posts deleted or not approved. Emails were either ignored or given non-answers, and people who wanted to speak directly to the con's registered owner, Ladder Entertainment, were shocked to find that the company was listed as permanently closed. Also, also
Permanently
mentioned about
closed?
how Izumicon's Facebook group for volunteers was renamed and deleted, but I've been told that, at the very least, wasn't Dez's doing. Yeah, that was actually one of the directors. In any case, as you've probably already pieced together, yeah, despite everything, the 13th came and went without any official word from Izumicon/Dez. A few other people made warning posts about the con's inevitable cancellation, and perhaps the most notable among these posts was one made by a then friend of Dez's, one of the newer directors who would have recently resigned, saying that, make no mistake, this con was definitely cancelled. Dez just won't make an announcement until she figures out how to handle the situation. When exactly that might be, though, they had no idea.
Bro,
At this
what?
point, it was painfully obvious for those keeping tabs on the situation that this con was simply dead. With only a few weeks left till the weekend it was supposed to happen, there were no directors, no schedule, no organization, and at the rate they were announcing their own cancellations, pretty soon the con wouldn't have any guests left either. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about this for just a moment. So, originally, in addition to Justin Nimmo,
He's the Silver Power Ranger for Power Rangers in Space.
the con was supposed to have 5 voice guests. There was Morgan Berry, Jade Saxton, J. Michael Tatum, Austin Tyndall, and Barry Yandel. The first 2 to cancel were J. Michael Tatum and Morgan Berry, who'd been double booked by Sabaton Con and SAC Anime respectively. Tatum tweeted that he sent his cancellation as early as March, and I've spoken to Morgan Berry, who alleged that she sent hers in as early as February, and that she sent it to both her agent and directly to Dez. And why Dez and not an official guest relations director, you may be wondering? Well, Izumicon's old guest relations director was among the first few directors to leave once Dez took over, and claims to have left early enough to have zero involvement in any capacity for booking any of the 2018 guests. The con's next official guest relations director claims to have not been given the position until 3 to 4 months before the con happened, and according to her, all but one of the con's would-be guests had already been booked by that point. She further claims that she never spoke to Barry or Tatum the entire time she was with the con, something that A, fits with the idea that Barry and Tatum had sent in their cancellation notices pretty early on and therefore didn't think that they had to talk to someone from the con so many months later, and B, Barry has vouched for this by virtue of alleging that outside of the unpublished Unlocked interview, that Dez was the only person within Izumicon that she can recall speaking to about her appearance there. So, in short, if these claims are to be believed, and personally I have no reason to doubt them, then that would mean that Dez, who we know had previously expressed a lot of interest in guest relations, was acting as the con's unofficial guest relations director in at least some capacity for the majority of the con's planning. You can probably guess what's going to happen next. According to Morgan, Dez communicating with her via Facebook, so she'd send her cancellation notice to Dez via a now inaccessible Facebook message sometime in February, and then she'd simply never hear anything from Dez ever again. And Tatum's tweets suggest that he had a similar experience, that after allegedly sending in his cancellation notice in March, he just wouldn't get a response. Worth noting, by the way, is that he had already been added to Sabaton Con's guest list as early as January 9th, and as for Morgan, she'd be officially added to SAC Anime's guest list on March 16th. In other words, while we may not have precise dates, it seems extremely evident that both of them would have had to have been aware of their double bookings pretty early on. So
Yo, the Sailor Moon transformation on stage, that's crazy.
So early on, yeah, that seems pretty reasonable to me. And yet, despite this, the con wouldn't announce their cancellations and remove them from the site's guest list until July, so what was going on? While Dez wasn't the one in charge of editing the website, she didn't seem to tell the person who was that Barry and Tatum needed to be removed from the guest list until mid-June. I asked a few guest relations staffers from various cons about how long it usually takes to announce guest cancellations, and I was told that a lot of it will depend on things like the reason for the cancellation, the size of the con, the gravity of the guest, how soon it is before the con, plenty of variables that make this question really tricky to answer. That they happen as soon as possible, nonetheless, seemed to be the go-to answer, and that although that can mean different things to different cons depending on the circumstances, taking weeks, let alone months, to announce a known guest cancellation is 100% not normal. Kat Callahan, a journalist who covers anime in Japan more generally and has served in various con positions, including guest relations positions from the late 90s to the mid-2010s, speculated about it. Assuming this was a major guest, I would speculate, without significant evidence to the contrary, that such a delay would be to avoid hemorrhaging refunds. In a screenshot of a conversation between Dez and a then friend, Dez can be seen asking for help because the talent agent knows that Tatum and Barry canceled months ago, and is saying that not announcing their cancellations earlier is fraudulent. To which Dez says, which is true, but not in a sketchy way like everybody's gonna think. You know, as though there's a non-sketchy, non-fraudulent reason to not announce guest cancellations that you already knew about. She goes,
Okay, I'll probably have to pause it here for now, and I will have to finish this video off for our regular Celeste stall, because I definitely have this meeting that I definitely said that I would be at. Because I'm the one that definitely suggested that time, and somehow I messed up the timing. Don't know how I did it. I'm assuming that I can just do this tomorrow. I'm assuming I can just pull up this video tomorrow on our, you know, our timely Celeste our Celeste stall. So we will have to do that then.
goes on to a
Oh god. Okay. All right. Hey, sorry I have to leave so abruptly. I have a quick, I don't want to say a quick, I have a meeting that I got to get to that's about to get started. Yeah, you guys have been great. I've been loving the video so far. I don't know how this is allowed to continue for so long, but that's crazy. So yeah, so we'll continue this tomorrow and we'll go from there. All right, you guys have a great night, and I will see you all tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. CST. Later.